want to innovate, but they don't want to fail, right?
Is that, like when you're doing discovery right, I think one of the key elements that it helps you achieve is it helps you become an empowered team. And
Hi, it was amazing, by the way. My name is Hubian, I'm a product designer. So you have given a huge insight into how a design team can scale. So, but there is one question I've been meaning to ask someone with as expertise as you. So I work as a lone wolf designer. So it's gotten to a point, industries has gotten to a point that it's a normalcy that a single handles all of the things. So you've given an insight into how to scale that, how to preach design. So I want to know how, as a single designer, my output can vary to a design team. So
No, that's a really good question, and I empathise with you because when I was at O2 originally as the O2 Money team, that fintech team, there was only one designer, and that was also me. But we did scale it, and the best advice in terms of that is you need to work out how much is your velocity, how much is your output now, versus if you were to have another version of you with you, and sell that to the business, sell that to your senior leadership. Tell them, look, I'm able to provide, I can get through, let's say, 3 or 4 user stories or this many features in a week or in a sprint. Times that by 2 if there was 2 of me, times that by 3 if there was 2 of me, and how does that affect my timeline? Because ultimately the business, I don't know where you work, I won't ask you in front of everyone, but you need to reduce that timeline as much as possible for the business. Because the more you spend time, the more time is wasted, unfortunately. It's a churn, it's a revenue churn. So you want to reduce that. So sometimes you do need to scale, but speak the numbers. It's not about I can create better design, because they aren't really, I don't know about the maturity of them, but they won't really care about that. They'll be like, how can we get more out to market as quickly as possible? How can we fail quicker? So on and so forth. So that's what I do. Just work out your velocity now, as today, and then work out the timeline of your current project and times that by how many designers you need, whether they're lead designers, senior designers, junior designers. You might need a few more junior in order to achieve your speed. But that's how I'd work it, and then pitch that to your senior leadership for the budget to hire.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Pratha Jain and Shruti. We have many things in common. I'm also Indian engineer MBA. My things up. So, what is your opinion? It's just being into certain role, or you can do something which you are passionate about.
That's a good point, So I think that's extreme. You're absolutely right, by the way. I don't believe that only certain roles should do certain things. I don't believe that at all. Maybe in like big companies and like companies that have a lot of positions and that can put in people for research, for everything, you can maybe be restricted by your title. Even then, I don't think you should be. So I'm at the moment in a startup where all of us are responsible for everything. And there is no lines, no rules, no boundaries, and everyone should be able to like speak to customers or even understand why you're doing what you're doing. And to be honest, that's what I call an empowered team. To be honest, like if everyone in the team, that is even if the engineers understand the reasoning behind why we are doing something for this customer problem, honestly, it results in much better solutions. Because then when you go into your workshops, you can see your engineer not questioning, like, why are we doing this? It's not a defend that, it's not that equation anymore. It's your engineer coming and telling us, oh, but you know what, we can do this better. We can build something else better. They will be telling you, like, why don't you go and find out if there is any proof by interviewing few customers and if there is any logic to this. So if your dev team, your engineering and your design and your PM are on the same page and are trying to explore the same problem together, that's a different thing. That's a completely different game, and that's when it becomes an empowered team. So no, I don't believe that you should stick to your roles at all. In fact, I think if there is a doubt or question or something in your mind, if there's something, if you're thinking that okay, there's something that can be better, you should definitely go and explore it. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Most of the times I have been wrong for sure. So if that's the case, fine, accept and move on. But if the may be cases where you're really right and you can find really good things. So yeah, I mean, do not be restricted by your rules, not at all.
Hi everyone. My question is to Kizz. So as you mentioned, you're supposed to figure out strategy, if not bottom up or let's say top to bottom, at least within your team. So keeping that in mind, how do you sort of figure out like the problem of microcultures? Like if you have a team, let's say, which spans across squads, scrum teams, and whatnot. So how do you fight microcultures? But that's something like I want to know.
Yeah, we definitely get different microcultures as well because it depends on who's leading your squad. It tends to be someone from business or product or scrum that leads the squad. So they determine the culture, the ways of working, the speed, the velocity, the happiness, the overall happiness of the team. To be honest with you, the way that we've adopted it is, as a design team, we can only control what we can control. So as some of them are in the audience, so they can vouch for me. Like, as a team, we're strong. How it operates in the squad is very different. A lot of it comes down to me having a conversation with the heads of the people that are leading the squads to say, hey, you need to check where you are here and so on and so forth. It's the soft skills, right? It's the politics behind it. But the ideal situation is to have a strong design team as a culture inside, because you can't determine the squad. Like, it's someone else's team, it's someone else's line manager, and so on and so forth. But for me and the team, we make sure that we're strong. We can actually do retrospects at the end of each and every. We try to do it at the end of every month. We don't do it at the end of every sprint, and try and see where we can improve, and then it's my job to go and fix it with the senior leadership.
Even within the design team, how do you fight that?
Sure. Okay. So the good thing is we're actually building customer products and B2B products, enterprise, and so on and so forth. The way that we do that is we've got multiple different releases happening at the same time. They're all happening in parallel. So once a designer this is why I went down the model of having product designers versus UX UI. So people weren't pigeonholed as working on the customer app and person working on a portal and so on and so forth. They can work wherever they need to work, and it's important for all the designers, including design system, including content design, to know all of the products and actually work on the products as a whole. You aren't just stuck with one vertical or one channel. That's what we've done. It does work smoothly, but we do have times where it's never perfect, where someone's on something they don't want to be on for too long. But what we try to do is ensure that once they've completed all of their backlog, they've done the release, they can then move on to the next release and jump onto another channel, for example.
So my question is kind of like a question that's sometimes frequently popped up among designers' mind. It's about AI. So my question is that, so you talked about how you have increased the speed of delivering wireframes, right? And because we have AI plugins right now in Figma, like Wiregen, and then you have UIZer, etc. They can build wireframes very fast, right? But they only extrapolate from a set of libraries, and they can't really take it out from our design systems. But they will soon, right? Like, more products will come like that. So my question is that, how do we as designers stay ahead of AI?
That's a good question. So I wish that we could use these plugins, but we are a government entity. We can't use cloud services. Yeah, like, but I understand your point. Look, like, AI is here whether you like it or not. It's just, we already use it. We use ChatGPT for presentations or sending an email and changing the tone of voice and all of these things. I'm so sorry. It's not discrediting content design. But we do it. It's just how we adapt. We might end up becoming UX prompters and then adapting the design. But I'll be honest with you, I have had this conversation before with lots of friends. I don't see AI taking over design, because we have to design for human beings. Yes, it might filter out designs, it might filter out a journey and say, hey, rather than do that, you should copy this. It might take all of the different telco products around the world and say, this is the best journey that's successful today. Cool, that's great, but we'll still have to refine it for our market. our people. Of course, you're in Qatar, so you'll be designing English and Arabic as well. There's a different culture there, how we speak to customers. So to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you're looking at workflow though, it will speed up workflow. It should speed up workflow, to be honest with you, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for the great insights, both of you. And another thanks to Amber to having a panel with product and design together, because normally it happens in silos, so that's really great. I'm Meenakshi, I work as a product manager. I have worked with different corporates and startups. So my question is actually to both of you. So whoever wants to take it first. So I have seen in like startups and different corporates of the product and design working differently. And of course I have learned lessons. But I want to understand from you both, knowing from where you have started and where you are today. So what is your take on working together or the way you are working in product discovery, and also at the any enhancement layer where you are working to scale up the current products? So how do you do it in your practice as of today?
Honestly, for me, I think it should be a right balance, you know. So I would like to tell you that, you know, I would be very happy if I could have an engineer and a product person and a dev engineer and a designer, sorry, working together and exploring a problem statement. That would be amazing, right? And also a QA if possible. That would be really amazing, right? But then we also have to keep in mind that, you know, whenever we are taking an engineer or a designer, we are actually taking away time from dev time. So that's something that should be there in our mind for sure. So I think it's a balance. It should be a balance. Like while we should do the product discovery, all of us, everyone together, the workshops can be together, but maybe the individual things that you want to go and discover, like the analysis that you want to do, the insights that you want to explore, the tests that you want to design, all of that can be done maybe by one team alone. It doesn't have to be the product team, by the way. In a lot of the companies, design takes a lead on, like, you know, figuring out, okay, what should be done next, because they are more into the interviewing with customers and all of that. All that also happens. So it needs to be a balance. While all three need to be involved at some point or the other, it's okay if at some point for one team to take the lead and then, you know, like share the insights and then come together again a bit later.
Yeah, I agree. So it needs to be a two-way street. It's a fine line, a fine balance. The good thing about product is they might be closer to the business requirements and why we're doing something. As creators, we might go out and explore something else as well, but it's a relationship. The good thing is, we're fortunate because our product owners and so on and so forth, they're actually, they want the art of the possible, they want the best of the best, but they have to also do it within the restraints that they have. So they can empathize with us and we can empathize with them. And that's how we have really strong, tight relationships. We butt heads, which is great. Like, I love it that we butt heads all the time because diamonds are made under pressure. It's just how we like to work, and nothing's ever going to be easy.
That's true.
But one of the things that we do is even from product side, we pick our battles, right? For the business sake, not for our own personal egos and what we want to do and this and the other. We all want the best products possible. That's the shared vision. We both want it, but we also know which ones are we going to actually fight for, which ones are worth fighting for the customer at the end of the day, and which ones are feasible. Sometimes we can shoot the gun and go for pie in the sky, but it's not feasible. Whereas products will be like, no, the customer just needs this. So it's a fine line, it's a fine balance, but yeah, that's how I'd say.
I would agree, and I would just add like one angle more to it, like impact prioritization. So if there are like two different views, and you're like completely at conflict with each other, no, we should go in this direction, and design things, we should go in completely different direction, then you refer back to why you're doing what you're doing, right? And figure out what your expected impact is. And if it's not completely clear, then you come to a middle ground or like come to a agreement on a smaller base version or a phase one or like a MVP or something of that sort, which can be tested out.
But actually, you both touched on something that is actually really, really important, because you both talked about speaking the language of the business, right? Because and I think one thing about being a leader is you realize that 90% of your job is being a therapist to your team because they come and cry to you about how, why don't they listen to me? Why don't they understand me? Why don't they feel me? And so much of my conversation to them was, they don't need to understand you. You need to speak their language and you need to empathize and understand them, right? Like especially with business stakeholders, they don't have the time to speak your language. So I'm curious for both of you in your roles as leaders, how did you actually teach your teams to speak the language of the business? And how did you also empower them to take ownership of that? Because no one's gonna come and do that for you, right? Because everyone's just too busy. So I'm just curious in your experiences. And I think partly it also ties to the question around promotion or progression or when to become a manager. I can guarantee everyone, no one's gonna progress if you don't speak that language, right? Like if you just care about your craft, you're stuck in your role. But if you speak what you're saying, so that's my question to you guys. How did you get your teams to actually learn that?
Short and quick. So I think for me, what has worked is like individually identifying your audience and speaking their language, So if you're going to, for example, if you're going to a CEO and if he's a very, very math type of person, he likes numbers, he understands impact to a problem, or he understands those kind of, only that's what he understands and that's what translates to him, then you speak that language. If you're going to someone who does not speak that language, speaks a bit more on terms of, okay, in Q4, where are we going to be? In Q5, in Q1, where are we going to be? In Q3, where are we going to be? Like, if that's their term or that's their language, then you translate your answer into that form. And I think that's what has worked for me. As individual people, you try and get your relationships up with them and try and speak their language to them. As to convincing the team in itself, honestly, I have just transferred the strategies and things that work for me to the team as well. And really driving that ownership and accountability inside the team so that, if you want to see this change happening, then, do your extra work, do that extra homework, go and do that little bit of extra work and then try and convince this person why you're doing what you're doing, and it might just work out.
Okay, so where do I start? Because it started actually from the hiring process for the team that I'm in now. I already knew the challenge that we were going to face being in a massive corporate for the past 15 years. They're used to the same thing and the expectation was the same thing because they came from telcos traditionally. So how it worked in Germany would work here and so on and so forth. So when I hired designers or creative problem solvers that were open to learning and were passionate about design, because you need to have that thick skin where we are. That's the number one thing that I probably would say picked out the right designers for the team. But also, we've got multiple different CXOs with different flavors. Some of them are very visual, some of them are very analytical, and we customize our presentations to whoever we're talking to. If we're talking to the CEO, we're very numbers focused. The guy's so busy. If we're talking to, let's say, the CIO, we can be a bit more aesthetic and benchmark and show that finding. We can be a bit more granular to our thinking. But the team, the best way we've learned is by failing as well. Sometimes you go in and you expect to give them a wow presentation and actually the guy's just in a bad mood. And you close the door and it's just like, no, this is useless. Where's the wow factor? So yeah, it's really about learning by failing as well as designers. I still do it as well, I'm not perfect. But yeah, it's just really talking about the numbers. If we're talking to, let's say, for example, the CIO, we'll talk to the CTO, Chief Transformation Officer. It's a very uncommon job title, but it's important for the program we're on. We show the value that we bring into the program, not the company, the program. If we're talking to the CIO, we talk about the business, the overall business, including the program. So it just depends who we're talking to. But the designers do an incredible job at doing it, and it happened because of who we hired. We hired the right introverts, the extroverts. We're misfits that work well together.
Hi, my name is Daniel. So my question is, what is the right time to start scalable design?
So the right time is the day you start. The minute you start building design systems in Figma just to help your day-to-day ways of working, that's already scalable design. You can start designing faster and faster and faster. You don't need to sell that. You just got to find the time in your sprint to do it. And it's part of your workflow. That's where I'd say it's right at the start. Scaling it to the size that we're trying to do now That's taken 2.5 years to get to. But before we were doing it without funding. I didn't have a design system. I didn't have the budget for a design system squad or a team. I didn't have an individual specific to component design and testing the accessibility on components and dark mode and this, that, and the other. We didn't have that. We just found time in our sprints to do it and find the time to actually start showing the value. We picked up more user stories this month. Why did you do that? Well, we built this design system. We need to invest more in there. And now it's one of the most heavily funded teams.